What SEC teams added some key players from the transfer portal over the weekend? And the Texas Longhorns adding some insurance behind Arch Manning. Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to our everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use our code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com to get 50% off your first year. All right, latest SEC transfer portal movement over the weekend. Remember, I told you last week the portal closed, so you couldn't put your name into the portal if you weren't already in, but we got a ton of dudes in the portal that still haven't picked their new schools. And so what we're seeing is a little bit of fallout from that still, where a lot of guys are picking their new schools. And how about, let's start with the Texas Longhorns as they add some veteran depth to their quarterback room. Texas gearing up for a season where there is a ton of hype on Arch Manning, and see what Arch is going to do in the Steve Sarkisian system as the full-time starter. But Longhorns didn't have much experience depth behind him. So they go to the portal, and they had a guy from the Sun Belt who's got a good bit of experience. Matthew Caldwell coming over to the Texas Longhorns. He played in 10 games for Troy last year, started the final 5 games of the year, after he got into that starting role. Of course, we know Arch Manning primed for a big year as the heir apparent to Quinn Ewers. And if all goes well, Arch is a starter all year, and you barely see Matthew Caldwell. But Caldwell enters this period, enters the picture as the most experienced quarterback in Texas's room. You got redshirt freshman quarterback Trey Owens out of the Houston area, who's a highly touted recruit. You also have incoming freshman from Saraland quarterback Carl Lacey Jr., and then you still have redshirt junior Joe Tatum on the roster. But that's kind of it. You also have big-time quarterback Diabell coming in next year's class, but he's not here this year. So it's one of those big things where, Quinn Ewers got hurt a couple times throughout his career, and that's particularly this past year. That's when we saw Arch Manning get a couple starts and play a good bit. When Quinn was out, question becomes, what if Arch gets hurt at some point? He's got to miss a game or whatever. Who would you turn to? And so at least Sark's got an experienced option now in Matthew Caldwell. Last season, he threw for 1,600 yards, 63% completion percentage, 18 total touchdowns. He began his career with 3 games at Jacksonville State in the 2021 season before spending 2023 at the FCS level with Gardner-Webb. During his time at Gardner-Webb, he threw for just over 1,000 yards with 6 touchdowns there. But like I said, Arch Manning expects to be the guy at Texas, but barring any injury, we hopefully, at least for Longhorn fans' sake, you don't want to see Matthew Caldwell from Troy. But like we said, at least a guy with some experience, some skins on the wall added to that quarterback room. By all means, all signs point to good addition to the quarterback room as far as depth for Sark and the crew. All right, how about over at LSU? They added yesterday Houston defensive back A.J. Haulcy. He is a safety committed to LSU on Sunday. Pete Thamel tweeting out former Houston safety A.J. Haulcy committed to LSU on his visit. He was one of the top transfers to enter during the spring window, and he had a lot of interest from some other big programs like Miami and Ole Miss. Miami did all they could. He had a visit to Coral Gables a couple days ago. Went and visited Baton Rouge on Sunday, and LSU did not let him go. But when he visited Miami earlier last week, man, he had a police escort. Also spent time with rapper Rick Ross. Miami went all out for him, but LSU able to sell him on well, playing in the SEC. Of course, big year for Brian Kelly, Garrett Nussmeier coming back. They already had one of the top-rated portal classes as it was. And if you saw on Friday on 3 and a few of the other sites, they had predicted that this was going to happen, that Haulcy was going to end up signing there. According to On 3, they say his agent said he wanted to play in the SEC, win a national championship, and improve his draft stock. They described LSU's financial offer as competitive with other teams, but declined to specify how much the Tigers offered. He spent the past 2 seasons at the University of Houston, started his career out at New Mexico, and in his career, over 200 tackles, 15 pass deflections, 7 picks. He was the first-team All-Big 12 selection last year at safety, posting 74 tackles, 5 picks, and 13 passes defended. Started all 24 games for the Cougars over the past 2 seasons, led the team in tackles in 2023, and his pass coverage numbers got much better last year. His 5 interceptions tied for the most in the Big 12, and he will have 1 more year of eligibility, expected to compete to start with Tamarcus Cooley, well, as you also brought in through the portal, along with fifth-year senior Jordan Gilbert, formerly played at A&M, junior Javian Toviano, and sophomore Deshaun Spears. So LSU not resting on their laurels at that safety spot, saying, we can add another piece. Let's go add another piece. But obviously, they need some good play there. Obviously, what they lose, Major Burns, and who's the other kid that went to Ole Miss? Having a brain fart. Pull it up here. Sage Ryan. Sage Ryan went on to Ole Miss. But you look at that LSU secondary, and you've got Mansour Delane coming in for Virginia Tech, who expects to start at 1 corner spot. They got a true freshman, DJ Pickett, who's going to push to start at the other spot. They brought in Jakeem Jackson from Florida. Still got Ashton Stamps on the depth chart, but man, it's just gonna look completely different. I mean, you could have possibly 4 new names back there in the secondary for LSU in 2025. And certainly it's been a spot where they've been lacking that defense. Corey Raymond doing some work there. All right, in other transfer portal news, how about over at Tennessee? On Friday, they added to their secondary with a transfer commitment from former Colorado corner Colton Hood, 5'11", 190-pound defensive back. Joins the Vols with 3 seasons of eligibility remaining. Played in all 13 games last year for the Buffaloes. Started his career at Auburn in 2023. Appeared in 4 games that year while taking a red shirt. He was on a visit to Knoxville just a day prior to his announcement. Also had interest from Miami and Notre Dame. Made the first start of his career last year against Arizona, where he's matched up against Teteroa McMillan, who ended up being the 8th overall pick in this draft, and held him to just 1 catch for 10 yards. So pretty good pickup there for Tennessee in cornerback Colton Hood. In his career, 24 tackles, 6 pass breakups, and 2 interceptions last season. Also returned 4 kickoffs for the Buffs. His former 4-star prospect out of state of Georgia when he signed with Auburn. Now, Vols have 7 transfer pledges this offseason. Hood is the first DB to come in this offseason. But Tennessee did sign 4 new freshmen to the roster in the offseason. Of course, last year's starters, Jermod McCoy and Ricky Gibson, are back. But, of course, ACL tear in January put Jermod McCoy on the shelf for a while. And Josh Heupel saying, we got to add some depth to that room. So, Jermod McCoy, Ricky Gibson, likely the starting corners, but good rotational piece there with Colton Hood added into the mix. All right, how about another edition of the weekend? Mizzou adding Ohio D-lineman Balen Henderson. Transfer from Ohio University, signed with Mizzou, and Eli Drinkwitz posting his signature bat signal to social media indicating a new Mizzou signee. He's 6'2", 280 pounds, Pittsburgh native. Started his career in 2021, his first 2 seasons. Made only 6 appearances, stepped into a bigger role the past 2 seasons, played in 12 games with a couple of starts in 2023. Last year, started all 14 games, had 26 tackles and a sack. He announced his entry into the portal a month ago and had offers from Ole Miss, Vanderbilt, Miami, among others. So Ohio D-lineman Balen Henderson added to the mix for Mizzou. See what he can do there. And lastly, this one is a guy heading out of the SEC, but former Oklahoma running back Gavin Sawchuck announcing over the weekend he is headed to Florida State. Florida State officially making the announcement on Sunday. Heads to Tallahassee after 3 seasons in Norman. Now, Sawchuck saw his most productive season in 2023, rushed for almost 750 yards and 9 touchdowns. That was his redshirt freshman season, and you just thought, oh, well, this guy's going to be a breakout player for them in their first year in the SEC. Well, last year, he just dealt with injuries. Much of the year was limited to just 39 carries for 128 yards and 1 touchdown. So Gavin Sawchuck heading out of the SEC, heading out of Oklahoma, he will head to Florida State. And, of course, if you paid attention, Oklahoma with a little bit of change to their running back room where they went out and added Jaden Ott, the very productive Cal running back, a couple of weeks ago. So, so Jaden Ott's there, Javante Barnes, Xavier Robinson, Taylor Tatum still hanging around, but Jaden Ott projected to be the starter. Gavin Sawchuck on the way to Mississippi or Florida State. All right, thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming next, we got some recruiting news from over the weekend. We'll get you caught up on the latest commits around the SEC. It's coming your way in just a sec. Hey, but first, want to let you guys know about our friends over at Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, and that is Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands, you're going to find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. If you need help with an order, Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for the trade pros out there, if you're looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled pros are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Go join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM. Start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Use promo code SH5. That'll get you 5% off your first order. That's over at supplyhouse.com. All right, roll along here. Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. We talked transfer portal last segment. We'll talk some SEC baseball coming up in just a bit. But first, we had some recruiting news happening over the weekend. So let's get to the movement over on that front. We start over at Ole Miss as they picked up a commitment from 4-star in-state running back Demarius Yates from DeKalb, Mississippi. He announced his verbal pledge to Lane Kiffin on Sunday. He's listed at 5'9", 179 pounds. He is a 4-star back, the number 7 player from the state of Mississippi, number 11 running back in the class of 2026, number 125 overall prospect. But big-time pickup there, keeping him in state, and he attracted some interests outside of the state. Or in-state, rather, from Mississippi State. So it was a little bit of an Egg Bowl rivalry there in his recruitment, but also had offers from the likes of Alabama, Auburn, Florida State, Tennessee, Texas A&M. Ole Miss now up to 7 verbal commitments for the class of 2026, which ranks in the top 30 currently. So shout out to Demarius Yates. They got to get some consistent run game going there for Ole Miss. So like they got to get as many big-time running back recruits as possible. Now, also on Friday, Ole Miss landed a commitment from linebacker Isaiah Williams, blue chip recruit ranked as one of the best prospects in the class of 2026. His recruitment, it's been a whirlwind, though. He has flipped and flopped and everything else. 6'1" linebacker. He initially committed to Louisville in November of 2023. Then he decommitted the following January. In April of last year, he committed to Syracuse, but backed off that pledge in August. And then he took a visit to Florida State last September, gave his verbal pledge to the Seminoles, and then 2 months later left the class, or Florida State's class. Then he committed to Florida in early March of this year, but took an official visit to Oxford this past week and flipped his commitment to Ole Miss. He's ranked as the third best linebacker in this upcoming class, the sixth best prospect from the state of Florida, 4-star recruit in the industry-generated composite, ranked as the 51st overall recruit in the country. But he's got some more visits coming up. Penn State, Georgia later this month, scheduled to visit Alabama, Florida, Colorado, and Florida State in June. So who's to say? Isaiah Williams could flip another 6 times before it's all said and done. But we'll see. We'll see if he sticks with Ole Miss. But as I saw one Ole Miss fan tweeted, they said, just let me know when the pen is on the paper and the ink is dry and the signature's in. That's how recruiting is these days. All right, over at Georgia, they picked up a 2026 offensive lineman in Graham Houston, 6'5", 305-pound interior lineman, committed to Georgia just a couple of days ago. Chose the Bulldogs over the likes of Florida, Ole Miss, and Florida State. Ranks as the number 33 recruit from the state of Georgia, the number 23 interior O-lineman. 4-star prospect, ranks inside the top 300 nationally. Told the Athens Banner-Herald he felt Georgia was the best place to help develop him. He said, it's the best fit for me. I can end up being a great football player there. The goal is to win a few national championships, and the main goal is to get to the NFL. Just feel like it's the best place I can strive as a football player. So 7th commitment for Georgia in their class of 2026. First O-lineman in that group. Over at Mississippi State, Jeff Lebby made a big splash a couple of days ago, picking up a quarterback commitment for the class of 2026. Brody McWhorter, McWhorter. Almost sounds like something off the McDonald's menu, but Brody McWhorter announcing he is heading to Mississippi State. 6'2", 205 pounds. On the 24/7 Sports Composite, they got him as a 3-star, the number 27 quarterback prospect. Had offers from the likes of Arkansas, Louisville, Florida, Georgia, NC State, and others. He named a Final 5 that include Mississippi State, Auburn, Colorado, Wisconsin, and narrowed it down and ultimately chose Mississippi State's Jeff Lebby. Obviously, he's run good offenses before, so see if Brody McWhorter ends up there at Mississippi State. All right, a few other recruits moving around this past week. How about over at Arkansas? They added tight end Javion Martin for the class of 2026, coming out of Pflugerville, Texas, 6'4", 250 pounds. Went to camp at Arkansas last summer and announced his decision just a couple of days ago. Headed to the Arkansas Razorbacks for the class of 2026. Arkansas entered Wednesday ranked 16th nationally, 3rd in the SEC in recruiting. 24/7 Sports has their class as number 12 nationally. So, again, all the different recruiting sites all kind of vary on that kind of stuff. How about over at Vanderbilt? They made a nice pickup in a 4-star corner in Caden Harris, committing to Vanderbilt over Georgia and Notre Dame. Missouri and Auburn were also in the mix, but 4-star cornerback, the number 3 player from the state of Tennessee, number 82 nationally. And if he does, stay there in the rankings, he will be the second highest rated signee in program history, only behind wide receiver Chris Young in 2000. Clark Lee continuing to dominate, at least according to Vandy standards, in getting some big-time defensive players. And Martell Height, Dante Carter, Carson Lawrence, all guys that Clark Lee had landed out of high school. But Caden Harris becomes the 6th player committed to Vandy for the class of 2026. All their other signees commits are 3-star prospects. And one more for you over at LSU, Brian Kelly picking up a 4-star corner in Havon Finney Jr., 6'2", 170 pounds out of the Los Angeles area. USC and Oregon were also considered high on his list, but he will schedule to take his official visit to LSU coming up in June. We'll also visit Ohio State and USC. But he was originally going to be a member of the 2027 class, but reclassified to 2026. And he's been nationally recognized on the recruiting circuit since his freshman year, 2023. Some people think he has a little bit of Travis Hunter in him. Last season, he had 37 tackles, 4 interceptions, 16 pass breakups, also returned 2 punts for touchdowns. And on offense, he had a couple of catches for 63 yards. So see what Havon Finney does for LSU if he sticks with his commitment down the road. All right, there you have it. It's the latest going on in recruiting around the SEC. When we return here on Locked On SEC, we'll get you caught up on the weekend that was in SEC baseball. That's coming your way here in just a second on Locked On SEC. Hey, but first, if you've ever checked your bank account and wondered where did all my money go between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, is easy to lose track, and that's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center, and you can track all your accounts, all your investments, and all your spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building your wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, and even plan some long-term goals. Go take control of your finances today with Monarch Money. Use our code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com. It's MONARCH money.com. Get 50% off your first year with that code LOCKEDONCollege. Half off your first year. monarchmoney.com. Go check them out today. You will not regret it. All right, roll along here. Locked On SEC. Spent a lot of time talking football. How about a little bit of conversation on the baseball front? We have only got 2 weeks left of the regular season in the SEC in baseball. So let's take a look at the standings, and I'll kind of recap for you very quickly what happened over the weekend. So weekend games, we had Arkansas swept Texas. That was the most impressive performance of the weekend, in my opinion. Texas has been number 1 in the country. They still sit atop the SEC baseball standings at 19-5 overall, but how about Arkansas closing that gap a little bit, and at 17-7, they are look like a week or so ago that Texas is going to run away with the SEC, and not so fast, my friend. This thing is still a little bit open here, but Arkansas sweeps Texas. And how about the scores of these games? They won 9-0 on Thursday, 6-1 on Friday, and 13-8 on Saturday. And look, I'll bring this up. Some people pointed out on social media it was the first really tough road series for Texas. When you look at their other SEC road environments they've had to go to this year, they went to Kentucky. No offense to Kentucky, wasn't a tough environment. They went to Mizzou. They're the worst in the conference. And at Mississippi State, who just fired their coach a week ago. So, again, you know, we talked about it with football season. Did the Longhorns get the luck of the draw when it comes to football scheduling and avoiding some of the tougher power teams last year? Yeah. And oh, by the way, SEC goes, we're going to keep those same opponents for you, Texas, in 2026 or 2025 rather. Again, I'm having fun with Texas fans, but I think it's funny. This is what I'm just telling you what some of the other SEC fan bases are saying. They're looking at it going, oh, Texas, you finally had to play a tough SEC team in their house. Again, no disrespect to Kentucky, Mizzou, or Mississippi State, but Arkansas was a very formidable opponent, and Texas got swept. So, congrats to Arkansas, though. What a series win for them. And I saw, Todd on the SEC Network, he was throwing out there. He was like, I think Arkansas might be the year that they're set up to win it all. Dave Van Horn, they were knocking on the door just, a handful of years ago, came super close. But hey, Jim Schlosser ain't going to Texas. They're going to have something to say about this before it's all said and done. Just because they got swept by Arkansas, again, still sitting atop the baseball standings. All right, other games from the weekend. Auburn took 2 out of 3 at Tennessee. How about this? You talk about two ships going in opposite directions. The Vols have now lost 4 of their last 5 SEC series. What is going on there, Tony Vitello? And then on the flip side, Auburn has won 4 of their last 5 series. They lost a series to Texas there in the middle, but 4 of their last 5. Man, Butch Thompson's doing a great job there. Other games from the weekend, Mississippi State swept Kentucky, so that was pretty interesting. Their team responding after they fire head coach Chris Lemonis. Chris Lemonis out, and the team starts playing better. Crazy how that happens sometimes. Texas A&M took 2 out of 3 against LSU. That was a big-time series win for them. LSU was winning Game 3 late on Sunday. I think it was 4-3, and then a big 3-run homer by Sorrell in the 8th, and that made it 6-3, I believe, 6-4, whatever it was. But A&M, they went on to win that game on Sunday and take 2 out of 3 against LSU. Big time turnaround here for that team and what they've been doing the last few weeks. Because remember, they start off the season preseason number 1 and just came out flat on their face. Michael Early has been firing up the troops here. They've been playing much better baseball as of late. Florida swept South Carolina, so Florida rising from the dead a little bit. Oklahoma, they took 2 out of 3 against Ole Miss. Vandy took 2 out of 3 against Alabama. And Georgia swept Mizzou. So your standings, you got Texas at the top. You got Arkansas at number 2. You got LSU and Georgia tied at 15 and 9 in the 3rd spot. Then you got Tennessee and Vanderbilt behind them at 14 and 10. And then a big logjam of Auburn, Oklahoma, Alabama, and Ole Miss all at 13 and 11. Behind that, you got Florida 11 and 13, Kentucky, Mississippi State, Texas A&M all at 10 and 14, South Carolina at 5 and 19, and Mizzou at a dismal 0 and 24 in the conference. Absolutely atrocious. I do need to pull up the they did send out a note recently about the SEC baseball tournament, kind of announcing that, this will be the first year that everybody plays everybody, and there's no double bye or that we're so used to. It's single elimination. So that's going to take some getting used to. But nonetheless, it's going to be. But look, if you're a top team like Texas, you don't even have to get to Hoover until like Friday. Like everybody else, other teams could be playing earlier in the week. You get that several days by if you're one of the top seeds in the SEC tournament this year in baseball. So be interested to see how that plays out. One more nugget before we get out of here. SEC basketball had 19 of their stars invited to the 2025 NBA Draft Combine, which will be happening in this next week up in Chicago. And from the SEC, Final Four most outstanding player winner Walter Clayton Jr. will be in attendance. He is climbing draft boards with, of course, that amazing championship run in the NCAA tournament. SEC Player of the Year Jahni Broome will also be in attendance for the Combine. Other names include Kobe Brea of Kentucky, Alex Condon from Florida, Jeremiah Fears from Oklahoma, Boogie Flan and Carter Knox from Arkansas, Trey Johnson from Texas, Chaz Lanier from Tennessee, Elijah Martin from Florida, Jalen Moore from Oklahoma, Colin Murray Boyles from South Carolina, and then you got from Alabama, Grant Nelson, LeBaron Philon, Mark Sears, Adu Thiero from Arkansas, Asa Newell from Georgia, and Otega Owe from Kentucky. Now, Owe, I know, is one of those that not signing with an agent was going to wait and see what kind of draft grade he gets and could go back to Kentucky if he doesn't like where they have him projected. All right. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. For your second listen, you can check out The Portal Show. Brian Smith with the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape. Find The Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. Have a great day, everybody. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.